try that again. Um, all right. I'm joined today, early Siliconist podcast by Mitchell Singh, co-founder, CEO of Inch Fab, a startup that's pioneering microfabrication. First, thanks, Mitchell, for joining us and agreeing to be one of my very first victims on the Siliconist. I think you're the first one to use the term victim, so thanks for coming.
Sure. This is round two, John. So let's
That's right.
round two.
That's right. So yeah, for those watching, when my previous podcast was for MITRE and it was called Funders and Founders, and Mitchell was one of the early interviewees on that as well. So this is kind of a catch-up call and a kind of tell me how your business is going. So about Mitchell co-founded InchFab a long, long time ago, still the CEO, and InchFab calls itself a class of a fab, a microfab, a fab that's about 3 orders of magnitude smaller on the capital and the footprint size. Is that right?
I wouldn't say 3 orders of magnitude, but at least
Okay.
an order or maybe 2 orders of magnitude. But yeah, I mean, in short, what we do at InchFab is we deploy what we call application specific fabs. And these
Okay.
application specific fabs are relatively low cost effective fabs, but they're built around the modular system where each unit process has been put into a small box. And then we could basically pick and choose which of these unit process modules that we want or we need for each specific customer and put together an entire fab line. So our entire fab line is about 100 square meters, and it fits in any office space or any warehouse space. That's where we actually operate out of today. And just to give you the audience context here, right? Our whole fab line is on the order of $5 to $10 million, right? And
Okay.
the only things you need to provide the line are a power, exhaust, and HVAC. Otherwise,
Okay.
everything is self-contained in the box. I think the big things that have changed in the last time since the last time I spoke with you, John, right, is we've actually changed our business model, right? So we've gone from, so all of the little bit of history here as well is all of this technology came out of myself and my co-founder's PhD work at MIT, which was really looking at how do we lower the barrier of entry to making chips on the micro scale or making anything on the micro scale, in fact. Right. When we were at MIT, the common joke was things were being made in spite of the fab that we had, right? But if we looked at what was actually being made out of the fab, it was
Yeah.
quite impressive, right? At
Yeah.
that time, I distinctly remember, I think it was Professor Jesus de Alamo's lab. They claimed at that point they made the roads. This was more than 10 years ago now, right? So, or maybe 15 years ago now. At that point, they made a 2 nanometer gate all around transistor. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's something along those lines, right? And at that point, it was the smallest transistor in the road. And it was all made in a fab, an MIT's fab that was from all donated equipment from IBM across the street. And this is equipment that we needed to use floppy disks to go make work, right? So hence the in spite of.
Wow. Yeah. Circa what year? Floppy disks, like the
Yeah.
soft ones, or the yeah.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
then the back history there is actually so Parker, my co-founder, comes into the office one day and says, "Hey, I need a floppy disk to make this tool work." Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then so I was like, "Well, where do I find a floppy disk?" So I dig around the back of the lab. I found a floppy disk. I give it to him, and he says, "Oh, this won't work." I said, "This is a floppy disk. What else? 3.5 inch floppy disk, right?" Or
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgot the size, right? But I said, "Well, why doesn't it work?" He said, "This is a high density floppy disk. I need a low density floppy disk." So, so if you don't know, on the bottom corner of a floppy disk is a square, is an empty square where you could flip, and some of them you could flip a switch between high density and low density.
Yeah.
So the MIT hack to make a high density go to low density is you put a piece of tape over that empty square, and it tricks the tool to become a low density floppy disk.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I was gonna say, okay, I feel like anybody under 20 years old won't see this. Let me see if I can show what a high density floppy disk looks like. The So the 3.5 inch disc, right? You're saying one
Yeah,
of
that
these
square on
corners
the
you had
top
to,
left. Yeah,
yeah, got it. So you cover that up and then you're good to go.
you cover that up, and you're good to go. Yeah. So um, I could keep talking here, John.
Yeah. So
basically, right, is you don't need the key here. The main take home message here is to do fab, you don't need state of the art equipment necessarily, right? The stuff we were using at MIT, relatively old, right? 90s, right?
Yep.
And there's obviously
Yeah.
some newer stuff, right? To do state of the art work, right? And now, right, the only option today to build a new fab is really you need billions of dollars, right? By the time I left MIT, they started building MIT.nano, right?
Yeah.
That's the new clean room at MIT.
Okay.
What people don't know, I think this is all public knowledge, is it's a $400 million building. It's an
Yeah.
empty shell of a building. They spent $400 million just on the clean room itself, right? Obviously, there's infrastructure and other stuff that goes into it, right? But then once you start filling with equipment, right, that looks quickly approaches $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Only a price tag that MIT could afford there. I think, right? It's like not everybody. So
exactly, right.
yeah.
So this is the kind of barrier that you need to start innovating or making things on the macro scale. So
Yeah.
our whole premise was how do we lower the barrier of entry, right? And that's what we set out to do. And then through the course of my PhD work and my co-founder's PhD work, really what we did is we looked at state-of-the-art microfabrication processes that are pretty much only available on 8-inch or larger today, right? And we said, how do we scale this to a smaller size such
Yeah.
that we can make it more affordable?
Okay.
In effect, my PhD advisors, uh, his challenge to us for a master's thesis at that time was, can you build me a deep reactive iron etch tool running the Bosch process that fits in a microwave oven that costs $20,000? If you do
Microwave
that, I'll
oven.
give you
Yeah.
your master's thesis, right? So,
Got it.
and Bosch process, for reference, right, wasn't invented until 2000s, right? And that was six
Yeah.
inch or 8-inch or larger at that point already. Um, so that's basically my co-founders and our PhD thesis was looking at how do we scale these large scale processes that are only sold by applied materials and researchers. How do we scale those down? And then subsequently, we put together an entire whole fab line together on top of the core stuff that we developed through our course of our PhD work. So
Yeah.
that's the history of the company.
So
Yeah,
when I hear you describe it, I guess the first thing I'm thinking is it almost sounds like you've got Legos. You can put different processes in. So
yeah,
boxes
yeah,
go into the Connex box, and then you could ship it to a customer, and that's quick
yeah,
setup. But
yeah,
when I hear it described, I picture something like a university, like a computer lab or an engineering lab, but for hardware,
yeah, yeah,
3D printers, that sort of thing. So you have this in a university. Can students show up and sort of make their things as an engineering student, or is it more complex where you got to
yeah,
get a
yeah.
bigger team together? How does
No,
that
that's a good
work?
question. It's a great question. So let me back up a little bit here, right? Which is the reason we started this was actually not because of education, right? I mean, let me back up even more. Is basically we started the company 19. Nobody believed the model that we were proposing would work, right? So
Yeah.
basically through 2019 and now we've been in, since we talked the first time, John, right, is we've been providing foundry services, right?
Okay.
We've done projects with at least several or many MNCs, right? And we're in pilot production with some of these projects already, right? And we've done dozens of projects at this point through our fab line, really demonstrating two things. One is I call the right to fit fab model works, right? Um, and two is, hey, our stuff actually works, right? Like since
Yeah,
we make our
for
own
sure.
tools, nobody believes our tools will work, right? So now,
Yeah.
so we had to
Yeah,
demonstrate
yeah.
that. So 2025, we branched out and started to sell the manufacturing lines because we saw this global demand for, I call it decentralized. The road is becoming more decentralized, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question now directly, John, is really the reason we started this was not actually for education purposes, right? It was really what I say to democratize fabrication, right? Is
Mhm.
enable people to make things, open the ability to have people make things, right? And what we saw is a lot of the markets that require microfabrication don't justify the need or don't justify the unit economics to use a multi-billion dollar fab, right? You
Okay.
go to any big fab today or foundry today, right? Your minimum order quantities are in the minimum millions of dollars, right? Just to get a project started, right?
Right.
Millions of dollars and millions of chips, right? Somewhere on that, or somewhere you get the narrative, right?
Yeah.
The numbers may not be quite right, but at least on the order of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be surprised by the amount of devices that uh um can be produced on relatively few wafer on a lower wafer volume, right? So
Yeah.
um we find that there are a lot of markets. I would say if I were to pull a number out of my butt, right, it would be 80% or plus of the products out there don't justify using a $20 billion TSMC fab where you need to be cranking out thousands of chips, thousands of wafers a month, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 wafers a month. Uh,
So 80% of the projects that 80% of the products that exist, or 80% of the products that could exist? Because I realize that there's
that's a good
what's
question. I don't know.
the principle of, like, I forget, when something becomes cheaper, like, people
Right,
consume more of it.
right.
So you I mean, yeah, you could see it either way. But so you're saying that you're able to shift the economics even for existing projects that are currently at, like,
Yeah,
larger foundries. They're able to come to
I would
you, and
say
yeah,
that uh, it's going to be even higher in the future. Because in the future, right, things are becoming more and more, I call application specific, right?
yeah,
Because today, right, if I were to extremely dumb down the semiconductor industry, the fab and fabless business model today, right?
yeah,
Basically, you have guys, the fabless guys are using an instruction manual from TSMC, which is their PDK, of,
yeah,
hey, I need to follow this instruction manual here to make my chip, right?
yeah,
Well, fundamentally, that means the innovation between fabless company A and fabless company B is just how do you follow the instruction manual? Right?
yeah,
There's nothing actually so-called fundamentally new coming out of it. So the next generation, I mean, if we use the language of CMOS, right, the instruction manual is basically says, follow these instructions to make a transistor.
yeah,
The innovation is now fabless company B, they just connect their transistors together in a different fashion. NVIDIA connects them together using one way, Apple connects them together in a different way,
yeah.
right?
So they're designing, like, they get the PDK, they're designing to the PDK, but that the innovation all happens upstream of what process you can provide,
Right. But
essentially. Yeah,
now everybody's using the same instruction manual. So what's
yeah,
the difference?
yeah,
So now, right, we see the advent of new material stacks, or it's with the end of Moore's law, so called the end of Moore's law coming. We see
yeah,
people using new material stacks, silicon carbide, gallium nitride, compound semi, even diamond-based electronics. We have some projects going on in that right now. Quantum
yeah,
computing. All these are examples of new material stacks where people are innovating on the transistor level, on the device level, right? And
yeah,
that's where we see people needing new processes and needing more application specific processes that are non traditional CMOS compatible, right?
yeah.
And that's why
So
I think the need for more, that 80% number is going to grow in the future.
that's really interesting, because, like, I remember talking to more than one startup that was like, "If we have a new process, cannot get into a fab because of cross contamination." So your any type of innovation, right, at any process level is often shut down just because uh, it's still a little bit experimental, or maybe the it's viewed as experimental on the development path or something like that. So you're saying that this could be a new way for lower volume, higher variation kind of runs to come in and use new materials, and innovate, like, in a different direction. You're not just going for a smaller node or something like that, but you're trying
Yeah.
a whole new process or a whole new material
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
Yeah, all of our customers are doing something new with some type of new material, right? And some new process flows that are not standardized. I don't think we have a single customer that's if any of our customers had a standardized process, right, they would just go to one of these big fabs, right?
yeah,
No reason. We're not going to beat any of these big fabs in price and cost, lead time, or
of
maybe lead time.
course.
Like there's no way we're going to compete with the TSMC in terms of price and volume, right? That's
Well, that
not what
sounds
we do.
almost like it's like a third kind of business model. So you have, you can drop a fab into your lab. You can also do fab as a service for
Yeah.
however you want to configure that, but it's almost like there's an innovation platform that nobody has. You
Right.
can also
Right.
serve as like, if you want to try a new process out and run that, you're not just sending us the design and a tape out
Okay.
and the traditional way, but you can try innovating on your process. That's cool. So how do the economics for small scale, high variation production
Yeah.
kind of work out then? So even if I were
Yeah.
to say like a medical device, something I want to do
Yeah.
something that's like high value but very low volume, how do you end up competing with that?
Yeah. So fundamentally, the reason our model works is because our capex is orders of magnitude less. Right. So if you look at the price of a chip today, a fair amount of it, over 50% of it, right, is easily in the depreciation of the capital equipment that was used to
Yeah.
make the chip, right?
Yeah.
We bring that slice of the pie down significantly, right? And as
Yeah.
a result of that, we are actually very price competitive on a price per unit area silicon or unit area of whatever substrate material you choose, right? As
Yeah.
a larger 8-inch silicon fab would be, right? So, and that's just fundamentally because our operational costs are lower, and then the big chunk of the pie is the capex cost is lower. And going back to the point I was just making is if we look at the semiconductor world in the East, right, in the
Yeah.
Jerry Sanders era, right, at least AMD Jerry Sanders era, right, he's famous for saying real men have fabs. Obviously, that
Yeah,
is not
right, okay. I thought that was the Intel. I thought that was Intel that
that
said that, but
that
yeah. Alright,
that
okay.
that is not politically appropriate to say these days.
You're right, yeah.
The reason, right, fundamentally, the reason behind that statement of real men have fabs is
Yeah.
people were competing on the process, on who can make a better transistor, right?
Okay.
I would argue we're back at that same era now, right? We've gone too far in one direction
Yeah.
of standardization via TSMC's right foundry model, right? We've
Yeah.
gone from real men have fabs to real men have no fabs and only TSMC has a fab. I mean, greatly
Yeah,
exaggerated, right?
well, you could make that. I mean, NVIDIA is, now the largest company in the world, right? Or it's up there.
Right. Right.
And,
It is, or it might be.
and
I
they don't
don't
have
know.
a fab, right?
They
So,
change it on a daily
if
basis,
that's
but
not
it's
yeah.
up there.
Right. If they're not a real man, then maybe we don't want to be real men. I don't know, but your point is taken. Like that. I think maybe we run the fabless model to like we're a terminal fabless model. It's like as fast and hard as it's going to go. And you're right that like maybe the innovation comes from, well, certainly materials, but you know, uh, packaging and all sorts of other places, right? So
I think
so
the pendulum has swung too far in one direction, right?
got it.
It's swinging back, right? And I think it's very clear that the pendulum is swinging back, right? And the industry has evolved to support the pendulum on the TSMC side, right? It
Okay.
doesn't anymore for application specific stuff, or because you're going to have to go buy a $10 million tool that does 200 wafer moves an hour. That's the only thing that's right, right?
Yeah.
So I think I believe we're at this nexus right now.
Yeah. So for only $5 million, I could become a real man and put a fab in my backyard over there and just like run
John,
my
you're
own
already a real
wafers. Yeah,
man.
right. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But I could be even more of a real man, according to AMD logic or something, I guess. But yeah.
Yes.
So so just wandering back to university, because I know that is the other
Yeah. Yeah.
drop a
Yeah.
fab
Yeah.
in your place.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Yeah.
some commercial, but a lot of university.
Yeah.
And I know you've kind of looked into that place. Like you got a pilot installation that runs right now. But if you were to say put this into a university, how hands-on do students really like actually get? Like we were talking they can run the whole thing and develop, you know, production skills or what
Yeah.
are they running
Yeah.
real processes or guided
Yeah.
workflows? How does it
Yeah.
work for them?
So what in 25, right, where we started to branch out the business and start selling our lines, really we
Yeah.
kind of proved to ourselves this thing works, right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, well,
Important point. Yeah.
and now, right now, we see there's a couple of things going on, or at least we observed in the world, right? It's becoming decentralized everywhere in the world. You name the place, you'd be surprised that I was surprised where you would see semiconductor manufacturing popping up, right? You know, John, you and
Do
I spent
tell.
some time in the Middle East, right? This last
Yeah.
month, right?
We were both in Oman in November.
There's a lot of activity in places that traditionally you would never have thought to see semiconductor activity, right? The semiconductor
Yeah.
manufacturing activity. And there's no better way, at least I think there's no better way of bringing on semiconductor manufacturing capabilities than with an InchFab style line. But going through that exercise, what we realized is these places that we're going to have nothing. They have
Right.
no
Yeah.
workforce. They want to have everything, but they don't have they don't have anything.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, right, as Morris Chang says, right, what makes a fab work is people.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
from that perspective, what we learned is where we have to start is not just sell them a manufacturing line to make whatever it is that they want. We need to train the people first before they could start making things.
It's I think logically that's exactly what we've heard in a couple different places that are looking at building an ecosystem right now, right? And if I think historically it's been, I have the industry first, and then the industry does this kind of back and forth between academia that is a revolving door, right? Um, it's all like industry almost. I can't think of like certainly in Silicon Valley, industry showed up first because you had sort of the Traders 8 broke off and built industry, and then university kind of did the revolving door with them. I think is that what happened in Taiwan as well, or did it go backwards? I feel like it went forwards. TSMC showed up, and then they built university programs around it, right?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, fair enough. We'll just hold on to that. I'm sure somebody will correct us, but but now you're right. So now you're starting from talented, smart people, but without the actual you say like the practical skill set, right? To
Yeah.
actually run
Yeah.
some of the capital infrastructure the regions are talking about putting in there. Um, and then yeah, so you have that chicken and egg like
So
problem,
then
right? You're gonna import a bunch of people, or yeah,
what we started to do, right, when we learned this is not only so okay, we sell a training line. Okay,
yeah,
but who's going to do the training? Who's going to set
yeah,
up the training courses? Who's going to
yeah,
run the training courses? Right. So these are the new challenges, right?
yeah.
And now what we do is actually we have a basic training course that we sell with our manufacturing lines, right?
Okay.
And looking back at this, this is thinking back at this is the course I would have liked to take at MIT, right?
Yeah, fair
To get
enough. Yeah,
into to get
that's good.
into to get into microfabrication, right?
Yeah,
At MIT, there's a high level class that you take, and then you end up with it's called 6.152. Everything in MIT is based on course numbers. So
yeah, I
it's
love that.
course 6, class
Of
152.
course. Yes.
For the MIT people in the audience, you understand what I'm saying. But uh, I would be surprised if this hits one MIT person. The
It's
in
gonna
that
be
course
big.
you make 3 different types of devices, right? We actually have a course
Yeah,
that's modeled after 6152 as well, which is the course I took, right? But
yeah,
then it goes even more fundamentals, like how do you do photolithography? How do you do dry etch? How do you do wet etch? Like what are
yeah.
the parameters involved? How do you tune these things? That's the fundamental course that we provide with the lines, and then they branch out from that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that makes perfect sense that you would also more than an instruction manual, like if you're an educator, having
Yeah.
curriculum or
We
some
train the
scaffolding to start
educators.
to, yeah, exactly, to start like teaching students with. So like thinking about that, like it sounds like you've referenced your experience at MIT. Is MIT like getting it right now? Like, are there universities like if you were to sort of zoom out across the academic landscape, who do you think is doing it best in terms of probably making practical foundry workers, if you will, or semiconductor
Interesting.
workforce? Anybody doing it right yet?
Oh, that's a very good question. I hadn't thought about that.
Has MIT gotten any better? Has MIT gotten any better since you were
Here's my
there?
take, right? My take
Yeah,
on this is you need a spectrum of people, right,
yeah,
to run a fab or
yeah,
to do microfabrication engineering or microelectronic engineering, right? At the leading institutes in the US, right, these fabs in effect are there for research, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
in some to some extent, they're funded by, right? They're funded by research
Yeah.
agencies, right? The DODs of the world, right? The DOEs, the Department of Commerce, or not the Department, they're funded by NSF, National Science Foundations, right? These are the things that funded these labs, right? So
Yep.
fundamentally, if you track the money back, it's all to enable research, right? And
Yeah.
if we're enabling research, what we're training people is we're training the scientists or the engineer scientists, right? The PhDs of the world, right? Those people are only the top tier of the people that you need in a fab,
Yeah.
right? What we're missing, in my opinion, and what I haven't seen so much of, right, is you still need day-to-day process engineers, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't see that coming. I haven't seen that anywhere, right? And that's to
Yeah.
some extent, if I were to sell InchFab, right, that's that's what we're kind of trying to fill that middle void, right? I
Yeah.
think there's plenty of ample smart people coming out from these MIT, Stanford, all these leading edge universities with fabs. I was very impressed by Cal State out of uh, out of Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
But the
And
but that
you
middle
think
layer,
they're
right?
they're doing more of, like you're saying, you've got your research layer, maybe your technician layer at the bottom, but you're talking about there's a process engineer layer at the middle, right? It just
Yeah,
doesn't people don't come out of the university, no matter what they study, knowing how to do that. There's you just basically all OJT, like you learn it at wherever you go.
you
Is
learn
that
wherever you go,
fair
right?
right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that's at least the people that we hire. That's what we see of the people that we hire today.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hopefully InchFab keeps on cranking those people out or
So
sets the stage for that.
we'll
That's
try to. Yeah,
yeah.
I think the model there, right? The model there is like in Europe, for example, right? You have vocational schools, right?
Yeah.
I think there should be a model of a vocational school that offers this type of training, or in the US, right, per se, it would be so-called community college level, right? Coursework, right? That
Yeah,
will
that's what I was
force
thinking
you to
community college would be where you go to do that,
right,
right? You take a 2 year or year and a half course in how
right,
to be
right.
that, but I don't know if that would be enough time to build a good process engineer or not. I'm not sure. But
You don't have to do
yeah,
everything. There's certain unit processes that people are trained on, right?
that's fair.
So I think
They do
those.
the same thing for biopharmacy though too. So I know at least I have a friend who he's like
Know
he
nothing
teaches
about
that,
that.
but I mean, it's the same thing where they'll teach you how to run different processes that you will eventually go work in pharma. So I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a the precedent or an analog. But so you've been, with the foundry business coming back to it, I'm sure that like many of the things that you make, people will not you will not reveal what it is that they made. But are there any like interesting devices or anything interesting that has kind of come out that you're like, oh,
Well,
this is
that's a good
cool.
question.
Like, this is something I would like to brag about. Do you get much engagement from the open source community?
We do not at this point.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
a lot of those seem to terminate, like a MPW at TSMC or somewhere else, or
Yeah.
um, yeah.
I will say we've been talking to a customer recently that is making a product that's in space right now,
Okay, that's cool.
but uses technology that was invented in the 60s or 70s,
Hmm.
and nobody makes it anymore.
Okay,
But it's very much fundamental physics,
yeah,
like quantum-based device, but very fundamental physics. I was like, this is the stuff I learned in school from this is the stuff like fundamental stuff I learned in school. It's very cool that people are doing this still, right? And it's
yeah,
the only
yeah.
thing that's qualified to fly in space right now.
Oh, nice. Okay,
So
yeah. I would
these
imagine rad hard is like a whole new
back in the
area
day,
of specialty chip that yeah, you just don't get a lot
and
of
like
space at TSMC to make.
I only learned about this in school like 20 years ago, right? It's like
Oh, cool. Yeah.
this is cool physics that is actually happen like actually being used right now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's super relevant right now because it's the only thing that is rad hard enough, right, to fly in space with the right
yeah,
temperature ranges. I mean, we've done a bunch of other projects too, but this is a new project we're exploring. But like there's a lot of stuff that is, and we like even most recently we have a customer right now that we're talking to that's doing a art project,
good. Cool.
right? It's like
I mean,
we see
what
things
is
that
yeah.
I have no idea, but like they
Okay.
gave us a GDS file and say, can you etch these things for us for an art installment that we're putting up?
Oh,
So
that's
if
cool.
you
Yeah.
open access to microfabrication, you don't know what's going to come out of it. Like I would have never expected some art project.
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, that is that, the same thing happened with 3D printers, right? As I as the technology became more accessible, or as that they sort of made a few innovations that made 3D printers really accessible because they've been around forever. But and then people started doing things that nobody ever thought would be like nobody dreamed of on the on one side until the technology and the tool became available. And you're just kind of like unleashing the world's creativity, which is magical, which is exactly what what we're here to
Yeah,
do.
that's what we're trying to do. But let me just add one more point on
Yeah,
that, which is
sure.
what we are doing is not really, it's different from 3D printing in that what we do is scalable, right?
Okay.
The processes that we run are no different from the processes that will be run in TSMC, right?
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
scalable from, well, I guess even before that, the 3D printing you do we want one at a time. We still use
That's
standard
fair.
semiconductor
Yeah.
manufacturing processes, right? So when
Yeah.
we make something on a wafer, we make thousands at a time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also like, oh, if we do thousands at a time on a smaller wafer, we run 4-inch wafers, right?
Yeah.
You could go to TSMC running on their 8-inch or 12-inch line too, right? I mean, it's not that easy as I
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
There's problems, right? But
Yeah.
conceptually, we're not reinventing the way people think about things,
Yeah.
how to make things. We're just enabling people to have access to something that would have cost millions of dollars, right?
So that's what actually that's a great question I was thinking of earlier. There's an entrepreneur like Naval Ravikant. He's a big on Twitter. If you haven't seen him, and he has this
I don't
great
know.
idea I think about once in a while. Okay, so it's basically every successful company is built on some piece of, they call it specific knowledge. It's like something that's not obvious that only a few people really understand, and you're able to sort of like wrap your mind around it, and then build a company on it, right? So you gain, I guess that's the one version of specific knowledge. He has much better definition than I just gave, but it's like, what is that one thing that you just like when you were looking at this process, you say, We can run the same processes, but we made them smaller." And is there one piece of specific knowledge that slapped you in the face when you were at MIT and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is how we can build InchFab"?
Um, it's a good
Or you cannot
question.
tell me, it might be top secret. Your board may not like you telling that online.
No, 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 no. You caught me thinking not because of distilling one information I can share or can't share is I don't know
Yeah.
the answer to that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that the company's built around the hypothesis that democratizing capabilities enables new things,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
Um, and I would say kind of the hidden thing that we see is the hidden piece of knowledge is the vast majority of things that are made on the micro scale today don't need extremely high volume manufacturing capabilities. That's kind of the hidden knowledge. And I encourage other people to enable this as well. I
Okay.
encourage our competitors to go do this as well, right? Because
Yeah.
we need you as well.
Yeah.
Kind of the hidden knowledge. I mean, it's the kind of the whole premise behind this. And enabling people is ultimately the, if we're trying to democratize technology, the fundamental part of that is people, right? So
Okay.
what we learned is we have to enable the people before we can enable the technology. Otherwise, nothing goes anywhere. So,
Yeah.
um, on the technical side, yeah, there's stuff that we're doing as well, right? That's unique, but I wouldn't call that like, I would classify that as like a magical aha, right? Like here's the key piece of technology that enables us to do this kind of thing. That kind of stuff is just a bunch of small things that enable
Well,
us to do it.
so was it so that moment that you said, "Oh, we could do this," was that just one of those one of the other ways you can become an entrepreneur is just to be ignorant of, like, not knowing that everybody else has said you can't do this, right? So like other people have looked at it and said we can't do that, and everybody in the industry was looking at, we can't make it that small, so we're not going to try. And you're just like, well, I'm new here and nobody said I couldn't do
Yeah,
it yet. So I'm
well,
just going to try. And then along the way, you just kind of figured it out, like iteratively, if you will.
to answer that question, I think I'm just stubborn.
Just, yeah, yeah, exactly. Just kind of
I
some
think to answer
combination
that,
of
I'm just stubborn.
inexperience, stubborn.
I believe I believe the world needs it. I want it, and I believe the world needs it, so I'm gonna go do it, right? So
Yeah.
we're gonna go do it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think those two answers are really just stubbornness. So
Got it.
the better way of saying is
Determination. Yeah.
determination, but I say stubbornness. So
That's fantastic. Well, you're the Wright brothers there. Apparently they were like very stubborn and just believed it could be done and figured out a way. And so did Mitchell.
we're working on it. We're working on
Cool.
it. We're on
Well,
that path.
thanks for taking the time to catch up with me. It was awesome. It was great to talk again about like what you're working on at InchFab, and thanks for explaining everything from the business to the technology.
Happy to do so.
Keep it up. I'll put the link to InchFab in the notes, and check back in soon. Cool.